And just like that, we're back. We're live on a Wednesday night from Fly on the Wall Productions, North Main Street in Barrie. You got us, J.D. Green. Pleasure to have you on board. My guest tonight is Newton Wells. We're going to be chatting about the wedding industry, and we're going to be sending a very profound message to brides and grooms who are shopping for a source of entertainment, specifically a DJ. We've got some critical advice for you. So I'll say before we even get started that if you know someone who is getting married in the coming year or 2 or 3, this is one where you are literally going to want to sharpen your pencils, as I have tonight, and literally take some notes on some of what you will learn about this crazy business, the wedding industry. And you'll see right on your screen, one of our supporting sponsors is Peak Entertainment. Now, Newt, first off, welcome to Aired Out. This is, I don't know when you were on last. It was a long time ago. I don't think it was here on North Main Street, was it? I don't think so.
No, it wasn't. You're right. It was at the TV studio.
Yep. CVTV.
It was several years ago,
yeah,
I guess.
Right here in Barrie.
Man, time flies when you're having fun, and we have a lot of fun.
You and I have, we've known each other, and we've been friends with each other for how many years now?
Enough so that if we tell anybody, they're gonna think we're old men.
Yeah. So we probably shouldn't.
Yeah, we probably shouldn't. But it's close to 30, I think.
All right. Well, it was 94-ish.
So that's like 29.
Yeah. Right.
Right. Wow.
And I remember when I met you, we were in radio together.
Yeah.
I met you, and I was like, and I'll never forget this. And I tell people this all the time: Newton Wells. Now, if that's the fakest radio name I've ever heard in my life, that's it right there. And you were like, actually, no, it's my real name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my name.
So you're the owner, the sole proprietor, the everything of Peak Entertainment.
That is correct.
Which you started in 96, I think.
96, yep, the spring of 96.
Okay. So here we are, fast forward how many years, and my God, what you have done, what you've created is, in my opinion, an empire.
Well, thanks. It's a lot of fun.
You are literally Vermont's premier DJ.
Thank you.
The most sought after.
I'm glad you're saying.
No, I'm not making this up. I'm saying to anyone who may not believe me, ask around.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we do a lot of weddings, and that's our primary thing, and it kind of always has been. I mean, we also do high school proms and that sort of thing in May, but weddings are 95 to, I'd have to look at the numbers, but I'd say 95 to 99% of what we do.
Right.
And it's a good game. Vermont's the number 2 wedding destination state in the union.
And I would probably say that you are most likely the most expensive DJ in the state of Vermont.
Well, I suppose that's probably true. I mean, I think, I don't know if I would. There's a lot of DJs out there.
That's right.
You'd have to check with everybody, but we're definitely on the top tier of what people charge, and admittedly so.
Sure.
But you get what you pay for in this game. And so there's a reason why we do cost a little bit more than the average.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your website, peakdj.com.
Yep. Peakdj.com. Peak like a mountaintop.
Is almost Wedding DJ 101. It's almost a college course that
Thank you.
you can get in there and you can read nuts and bolts about how critical your wedding DJ is, or at least should be, and all of the things, and there are many that can go wrong.
That's for sure.
Many. And in the early years, you, one of the things that impresses me so much about you is that the lessons that you learned in the early 90s, or the mid 90s when you started this, you learned those lessons one time.
That's it.
One time.
And we're still learning. I mean, it's funny. Every year I think I've got this down, and then every year some little situation will come up either at or during the preparation for an event where I think, there's another question we should be asking all of our clients.
You're constantly sharpening your edge.
Constantly. And so, I mean, I try to never say we've got this completely nailed, because every year I learn that there's more ways to improve what we're doing, and that's kind of what keeps it interesting.
Sure.
I mean, if we really totally had it down, it would get boring after a while, but it changes constantly, and that's what keeps it fun.
Raylene's saying right now, if the food and the music suck, so does the wedding. I mean,
that's true.
These are critical things. You have to have.
Yep.
You have to have in your budget. You have to have. You have to reprioritize your budget to make sure that there's certain things that are really in place. You and I are constantly, over the last 30 years or so, talking about how brides can maybe prioritize things in not the best way. They'll put all of the money, or a good chunk of the money, into the dress, or they'll prioritize the majority of their budget to the flowers, or even to the venue.
Sure. Brides and grooms both, and sometimes we're dealing with same-sex couples or whatever. But a common thing is to misplace the priorities in one way or another. And of course, it depends on the client, what the priority might be. There are people who, for whom music and dancing is really not their priority, and it might not be for their guests.
We've seen that.
We have seen that. Yeah, and so the trick is to figure out what is your priority, and
that's it.
If music really isn't your priority, then having the absolute best DJ out there might not be your thing. And that's okay.
The communication is critical. It's critical. How many times have you and I had, each of us separately, just the two of us, let alone the rest of your team, weddings where they were older folks who discovered each other later in life, got married, they have an older
crowd, older demographic,
network of friends and family, and they want 60 people there, 50 people, maybe even less, and they just want to sit around
and talk
and get caught up, and having more than you should be drinking and making a fool of yourself on the dance floor. Not the priority.
Yeah, and and it actually doesn't have much to do with age, because I've done 70th birthday parties where the birthday boy himself at 70 years old and all of his family and friends were down on the dance floor for like 2.5 hours, shaking their tails.
You don't know,
like you wouldn't believe. But there are constantly. There are types of gigs where, like, class reunions, for instance, are a really bad venue for a DJ. That's not the kind of event where a DJ is ever going to really be a great choice. We've done them. We get calls for them every year, and I've never done a class reunion where you had a full dance floor all night. You're lucky if you get anybody on the dance floor at a class reunion, because, it's been 30 years. They want to sit around and talk and catch up.
Sure.
That's all they want to do.
And if that's what the priorities, as a takeaway memory of that wedding,
Yeah.
then that's what it should be.
Yeah, sure.
So therefore,
Exactly.
maybe you're not blasting YMCA or something on the dance floor.
Exactly. So if we do get one of those, and once in a while we do, there are people that definitely will hire a DJ, even though they know that like the priority might for them not be a full dance floor all night long.
Sure.
And in that case, reading the room involves like recognizing that fact and just pulling it back a little bit, pulling the energy back in the music and dropping the volume so that people can converse and just kind of have a good time. And there are events where that does happen.
Newton Wells from Peak Entertainment, our guest tonight on Aired Out. He's been a sponsor since we started this thing and a huge supporter.
Well, that's because you're the man.
Can you believe this, dude? What's happened?
I love what you've done with this podcast. I love that you got out of radio just like me and decided to do your own thing, and you've come up with this fantastic production, the studio with all of these, the mics and the mixing boards, the processing, and all of the promotion that you've done, hooking it up with all the different websites and all the media is huge. And of course, your sponsors that make it possible financially for you.
Yeah.
Ding, ding, ding. Who are the sponsors?
Oh, there's a ton of them. I mean, there's a laundry list. There's a mile long. I mean, you can see some of them right here if you look at your screen. William Ravies, The Pub, Donnybrook Fight Promotions, Green Mountain Mulch, the list goes on. Associated General Contractors of Vermont, lots of different restaurants. It's right there on your screen in front of you.
And it's important to support those people. I mean, anyone who's listening, support your local sponsors on these things, because that's what keeps podcasts like this on the air and actually, being productive. This is the new local radio.
Absolutely. And it's niche based.
Yep.
On demand as well. There's a lot of people that go back and watch and listen when it's convenient for them.
Yep.
Which you and I have, when we were in radio, we were not used to that. If you missed it, you missed it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of one problem with radio. It's live and it's happening, and if it doesn't, if you're not tuned in at that exact minute,
sure,
you don't get the opportunity as you do with a podcast to like, hey, let's download it, let's listen to it when it's convenient for me.
Right. And we're live now, but the second we're done, the link is generated, so you can go back and watch.
Yeah.
You very slowly started to move your way up the chain of higher and higher and higher end venues, weddings.
Excuse me.
Higher budget weddings. That changed things for you, where you weren't necessarily target marketing the Vermont wedding, but more so you had to reach beyond the borders. You had to reach to Montreal and Albany and Boston and Connecticut and Massachusetts
and New York.
But your relationship with, and you learned this, and I find it fascinating, your relationship with the venue is absolutely critical.
It is.
The bride and the wedding party, the bride and groom, will come and they will go. Right. And hopefully they will recommend or give you a review.
Yeah.
But it's essentially kind of a flash in the pan. The venue is that's the one where you want to have that solid relationship and the reputation of being reliable, professional, always on time, always polished, and your staff, your entertainers who are playing the music are experienced being graceful under pressure.
That's true. I tell all my DJs that a wedding is really nothing more than an opportunity to book more weddings. And the way that you do that one wedding is one shot. You get one chance only to make that particular wedding exactly what that couple wants it to be.
That's right.
Because every couple is different, and what every couple wants is
Yeah.
a different thing.
Sure.
With regard to announcing, formalities, music selections, etc. And so we get one shot to make that couple happy. And as long as we do, we'll get a good review. And more importantly, the coordinator at that venue will have good feedback from their couple, and the experience that their couple has with not only the DJ but their florist and all the other wedding vendors is hugely important
Sure.
to that venue.
Of course.
Because guests who are at that wedding are going to, regardless of the fact that the DJ isn't an employee of the venue,
Right.
the guests are going to walk away from a wedding at a certain venue and either say, "We had a great time," or
Uncle Bill,
or
did
the
you see
opposite.
that? Did you see him on the dance floor?
"Exactly,
He ripped his pants. We had a great time.
Yeah, that's what you want.
That's what you want.
You want that. You want people having so much fun that they're ripping their pants,
Sure.
And that venue really wants that too. That
Of course
venue
they do.
and the coordinator and the owners at that venue, it's important to them that their client and the client's guests have the absolute best time that they possibly can.
That's right.
And so we only get one chance with every wedding to make that impression. And so it's important that we do that in order to maintain that relationship with the venue, and the relationships that we've built with all these venues throughout the many years that we've been in business are the reason we're so successful.
That's it right there.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it. They know that they can trust us to deliver exactly what their customers want.
Amen. And of the right amount of quality.
Right.
Let's,
And reliability
let-
at that
let's-
too.
Of course. Let's drop.
Yeah, we should talk about that later.
Let's name drop. Castle in the Clouds. I mean,
Yeah, over in New Hampshire. Yep.
Go.
Mount Washington Hotel, the Inn at Round Barn Farm right here in central Vermont. The list goes on and on. There are literally hundreds of venues that we work with. It's not 1,000, but
Right.
it's definitely in the 200 to 300 range. Throughout Vermont and New Hampshire.
I'm going to ask you in a little bit about cost and everything that's associated with that. And of course, we're going to talk about reliability, which you mentioned is absolute key, possibly more than anything else. But you mentioned earlier music selection. What
Excuse me.
When I hear music selection, I think people are you've had a full gamut of clients who, on the far left end of the spectrum, could give a rat's ass about the music, and frankly, just say, you know what? You play whatever you need to do to keep as many people on the dance floor having as much fun as possible.
Yep.
The other end of the spectrum is a very finely tuned, orchestrated
Type A personality.
experience.
Yep.
They are massively meticulous. And
To the point of possibly being considered micromanagement. But at least they know what they want.
at least they know what they want,
You know?
and there's something to be said for that.
Sure.
But at some point,
Yeah.
you must, as the owner of Peak Entertainment, feel like saying to some of these brides, look, I understand this is the most important day of your life. I understand that you have fantasized about what it's going to look like, what it's going to sound like, what it's going to smell like, what the weather's going to be like. I understand all of that. But I know that these particular songs that you have said are must plays. They must be played. I know, as a professional who's been doing this for many, many years, that particular song, or these particular songs that you have picked, these 10 right here, or more are going to bomb. And what that means, and we say this in our lingo, is that it's going to clear the floor.
Yeah.
People are going to walk off the floor. It's not necessarily a danceable song.
Yep.
It's not necessarily a popular song, but the bride loves that song.
Right.
And it's special to her for whatever reasons, and she wants it played. You're going to lose your floor, and you know you're going to lose your floor. What do you do? What do you say?
Well, we try to get a feel. I try to make phone calls with these things rather than we do a lot of this via email, especially with the music list. There's a lot of things that come in via email. But when it comes to a point where we have what we will call a weak music list, as opposed to one that is full of strong party motivating songs, we do get a few clients that will program some duds, if you will, or songs that may not be known duds, but they're certainly not known strong songs. So there's some question as to whether or not they're going to work. So at that point, it's best to have a phone call. We do find that our clients know their crowds better than we do going into the event. And many times...
That's a great point.
Yep. Many times... that weird song that we look at and we go, man, I don't know if that's going to work. You get to the gig and, the bride was right on. And, back in college, they were at a party and there were, all the sorority sisters or all of her friends from the sports team or whatever were totally into that song. And it's 15 years old now and it has not aged well in most ways, with most crowds, but for some reason it works. And you put it on and boom, all of her friends are on the floor and it's
you're surprised.
Yeah, and the DJ's like, I'm standing there going like, oh my God, I never would have thought.
Sure.
So that's why when we get some songs like that on a playlist, and usually there's 2 or 3, if any,
phone call.
Make a phone call. Talk to the bride. What's the story with this song?
Yeah.
What's this, there's got to be a reason why this is on here, I'm sure. So tell me what's the scoop? Because and a lot of times I'll tell them, I've looked at this song and I've had some experience with it and it's never worked for me. So like, let me know, I want to provide what I can to them from my experience, in information from the experience that we've had. But we also, on the same point, we want to make sure that we respect their desires to include whatever they want to include. And we will. And in most cases, if the client does opt to have us keep it as a must, it often works out really well. But I have seen situations where like I've had that phone call and the client says, "Oh yeah, that's not that important, and let's yank it." If you haven't seen it work well, then yeah. And I'm like, excellent, because that's 3 minutes, and what I tell people is
a lot can
that's $100 a minute. You know why? At the average wedding reception, at $30,000 for a 5-hour wedding reception, works out to, if you break it down by the minute, that's exactly $100 a minute.
Sure.
You
have also had to be kind of the and your staff, not just you, the continuity for things, keeping things flowing properly. Mm-hmm. You're responsible for that. There are times when we wax and wane a little bit. The right time to play a slow song.
Yes.
And not 5 slow songs one after another.
True. Yeah, that's where the art really comes in. The DJ needing to feel the room and decide what needs to happen at a certain time.
When you and I got started in radio, we, and I don't want to make us sound old, but both of us in the early 90s.
Yeah, we were kids.
We were, we were in our 20s?
I mean,
20s.
Only in northern Vermont, rural Vermont, could a teenager, have a live on-air job getting paid for it.
We were live.
We were lucky.
B, I remember I made $6.80 an hour.
Wow. I only got $6.25. They must have paid you more than me.
$6.80.
Now I'm jealous.
Well, you're gonna have to bring that up with Frankie. But we had cart decks, which were like 8-track cartridges, where that we would have to push into a machine and play as a commercial.
Yep.
And you had to fire them each one separately with your finger. And we had 2 CD players that we segued in between.
Fortunately, we did have a 3-cart deck machine.
Yes.
So we could line up 3 in a row.
But we had to understand, as Frankie would agree, that while we are playing live music on the air, we and Frankie, the program director, have to keep the flow, the pace, the cadence of our time on the air, had to keep it going.
True, yeah. He wanted that momentum. That was a word that kept on coming
Right.
up. You want to keep your momentum going.
And slow ballads were important, but not too many per hour.
Right.
And they had to be the right ones.
Yeah.
You carried on that knowledge going into Peak Entertainment.
I learned so much in radio. I don't think I would own a DJ company and be doing what I'm doing if I had not had that radio job when I was, 16 and up.
You have to be not you used to say to me, never have an empty deck.
Right.
Which means
always cue another song. Even if you
always
change it 3 times in the next 2 minutes.
When the song when the song is playing, enjoy the moment, look out at the crowd.
Yep.
Okay, but you have to be thinking not ahead to just the next song that you're going to be playing, but even at the very least the one after that.
Right.
You have to be that far ahead.
You're usually 2 or 3 songs ahead at all times.
In your
at
mind.
least.
In your mind.
And you get to the end, the last half hour, and especially the last half hour of a gig, you've got the entire thing lined up, timed out, beat mixed. You know that you're going from 126 to 128 or 130 beats per minute, and you're not going to break that one bit.
Yes.
Because, inevitably somebody will come up and say like, oh man, can you play Mustang Sally?
Right.
And you have to respectfully turn to them and explain, sir, it's 10 o'clock.
This is the fireworks finale.
Yeah. You're in the middle of your last 30 minutes and you've got a floor full of millennials, a young crowd on the dance floor. You've got everybody out there. It is jumping. You're playing pop and hip hop that's fairly current. And, at that point, if dad comes up and wants to hear Mustang Sally, you very politely have to say, sir, that's a 7 o'clock song. And, as much as I'd love to do it right now, I cannot. It would clear this dance floor, we would not get them back.
I've done that. I've had to tell dads that.
Yeah.
Dads who have had a couple of drinks.
I know. And that's part of the finesse of being a DJ, that we have to work. It's like we have to work that in and I mean, that's part of the job.
Yeah.
Because those situations come up at almost every event.
Sure.
I mean, the same goes for, the bridesmaid that comes up at 7 o'clock and, and says, hey, when are you going to play something good? And by something good, she means Pitbull.
Yes.
She's 24 years old and she wants to dance and party and hats off to her. I'm glad she does.
Right.
So at that point we have to say, hey, I totally understand that. But, it's 7 o'clock, it's 7:15, whatever it is.
You have to read the crowd.
Yeah. And I'm like, if you notice, we just started dancing. I've got the parents on the dance floor. I know it's older music, but believe me, I'll get to your stuff.
Yes.
Give me a little time.
Right.
Yeah.
We always used to say to each other things like,
it's a 7 o'clock song or it's a 10 o'clock song.
Yeah. When you get to the venue, while you're setting up, read the crowd. Take a look. See what the crowd looks like.
Yeah.
Is it 60-40?
Exactly.
Is it, more on the older side?
Yeah.
I mean, we have looked at a crowd and said, this is a Mustang Sally crowd.
Oh yeah, you can tell a lot of times.
This is a disco crowd. This is not a Pitbull crowd.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
We've also gone into situations where it's 60% straight up 20s and 30s.
Yep.
And then the other 40% is like 60 plus.
Yeah.
They want the Beatles and Elvis. And you have to, but they also are, especially grandma and grandpa, are the first to go home.
They are. And so they should be the first ones on the floor.
They're hot.
Yeah.
Their feet hurt.
Yep.
They want to get out of that suit.
They're exhausted. Yeah. I mean, it's been a long day.
So
a wedding day starts early in the morning.
You have to give them their enjoyment, their time of their music on the floor.
Yeah. These things always end up being a chronological progression where we always, I mean, there are, of course, exceptions to every rule, but for the most part, I'm sure you would agree that like a wedding DJ in most cases does a chronological progression, starting with the older stuff to keep the older crowd on the floor and then moving on to newer stuff.
Sure.
And the points at which things get newer all depends on that crowd.
Sure.
And that's why when we have our clients go through and pick songs, we ask them to, give us some stuff that's a little diverse.
What happens when you get
try to be respectful of all your guests.
What happens when you get the bride and the groom and the wedding party that want to partay, but
immediately,
but the rest of the majority of the rest of the crowd, they don't necessarily want to party. They want to enjoy some good food and some great conversation.
Yep.
Then what do you do?
Well, a lot of that comes down to making sure that the music isn't too loud, so that if you do have the young crowd on the dance floor and they're really at it, and they're having a great time, that you're not deafeningly loud, so that if there are people seated at the tables, which are probably 50 feet away from the speakers, let's say the speakers are here, the dance floor is here. It's always good to keep your dance floor between the DJ and the tables. And, as you're seating people at a wedding, the idea is to put the older crowd as far away from the speakers as you can. Grandpa and grandma should be the furthest people from the speakers. Yep. And, we just try to moderate that volume. As it says in the DJ itinerary that we'll send out, it says, hey, be respectful of people's need to converse.
Yeah. You and I,
'cause it's a wedding.
You and I have both had, and so has the rest of your staff, experiences where the day has gone wrong for that bride and groom.
Yeah.
It's pouring
Things
rain.
happen.
It's pouring rain.
Yeah.
The wind's picked up. Now we've got borderline hurricane.
Oh, yeah.
Thunderstorms, mud, the horse and buggy, cluster.
Oh, yeah.
The limo driver late.
Yeah.
The photographer slipped and fell into the pool.
Yeah. Or went to the wrong venue. I've seen that.
Or went to the wrong venue. So the photographer slipping and falling into the pool, that actually happened.
I've heard of that happening.
That happened at my wedding. I won't say where. But,
yeah, no, don't say.
But and ruined his camera and everything. So
God,
you as the DJ, we as the DJs have had to embrace that bride who may have slipped and fallen in the mud in her wedding dress.
Right.
Or there's a family scuffle. Emotions are high. Throw some booze into the mix.
Yeah.
We have had to be almost like that bride's best friend from college. Therapist. We have to hug them. We have to reassure them that everything is going to be okay.
Yeah.
That you all of your equipment is powered up, ready to go, and that you're going to keep it together. And we have to reassure them of that.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we've seen all of those scenarios. Every one of those things that you mentioned, and then some others. I remember events where all of those things one of those things has happened at one of many events.
Yeah.
You know, you never get all those things at once, but it's things happen on wedding days.
Sure.
You know, I mean, we're dealing with weather, we're dealing with 150 humans. You know, emotions are running high. There's a lot of money being spent. There's
People
a lot
have traveled.
of people have traveled.
The kids are being a pain in the
There's a lot of
ass.
alcohol. People do bring kids, and you know, the
They're
kids
tired.
melt down, and
Yeah.
there's all sorts of things
Yeah.
that will happen.
Sure.
I mean, I don't think, I always like to say that, like, I don't think we ever see a wedding where everything is perfect.
Right.
I mean, it's, you know, things happen.
Each of us have done weddings with a crowd of 250 people.
Yep.
And we've done weddings with a crowd of 30 people.
Yep.
Sometimes
Yep.
those smaller weddings,
Those can be tough.
well, they can be tough, but sometimes we can walk away from those weddings going, wow,
Yeah.
was that one hell of a night.
Yeah, I've seen,
never forget
even
that
the
one.
small crowds. Like, you know, if you've got the right crowd and you're playing the right music for that crowd.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you got to have the right crowd, and they've got to be excited to have a good time. You know, I mean,
Sure.
I've definitely done the wedding where, like, you know, it's clear that there's something funky emotionally going on, and you know, no matter what you do, you're not
No
gonna get
matter
them on
what
the
you do.
floor. But
Sure.
but yeah, if you got a crowd that's excited to party and they're in the right frame of mind that way, and you play the right music for that crowd, it
Yeah.
will work even with 30 guests.
Sure.
Yep.
I remember, I have many stories, and frankly, I've been begging you to write a book about all of your experiences. But every summer after summer after summer, at midnight, we would call each other
Yes. On the way home.
on the way home.
Yep. You're driving home. NPR's just playing space music anyway.
Right.
And like
Hearts of Space,
you know, Hearts of Space.
And we
Safe
would-
journey, space fans.
wherever you are.
Wherever you are.
We would talk. We would talk to each other, and how was your gig? And then
Yeah.
we would go through it, and we pass the time in our travels to share our experiences.
Yeah.
You had one once. I'll never forget. You had.
And that's where we learn too.
Oh.
You know, I tell you, those drives home are like, that's the time when like I'm replaying everything that happened at
Sure.
the gig and thinking, now how can I improve that? And how can I improve our preparation process to make sure that, you know, I don't have that little hiccup again, or that none of my employees have that little hiccup again. You know, because the thing with Peak Entertainment is, you know, it's easy to just do a gig yourself and not have to worry about taking too many notes. You'll remember for the next time.
Sure.
But when you're trying to set up a company and you know, where you're dealing with a large staff of DJs, and you've got to make sure that like every mistake that gets made, whether it's by me as the owner who's preparing the itineraries, or whether it's by an employee, the DJ who shows up at the event, or whether it's by our client who may have conveyed the wrong piece of information to us. How can we avoid the same mistake being made again?
right.
You know, that's
it.
the key.
That's the key.
And that's what we think of on those drives home.
And you
know?
let's be honest. You, frankly, obsess over that.
Oh, yeah. And that's what keeps it interesting to me. You know,
I think, and I think,
love it.
I think, and Sherilyn says the same thing, that's probably why you're so successful, why you have taken this to a whole new level.
I think, I thank you.
Because you just lose sleep over it. You even have a challenging time carrying on a conversation because your mind is so dialed into what do I need to buy or do or get or change so that never happens again.
True.
You learned that from the first wedding.
Day one. Yeah.
you
you
took-
remember that first
I
wedding.
remember you
You and I did it together.
You took notes
Yep.
on the drive home. You asked
Yep.
me to drive so that you could take notes.
And we
write down
talked 2.5 hours all the way home.
right from Hildene,
Hildene in Manchester. Yep.
talking about what you'll never do again. And by
Right.
God, you've never done that again.
Right. I
And
mean,
that was-
we learned, from that, and we still do it to this day.
Right.
And that was back in the 90s.
Equipment.
If back up.
This is something that I was screaming at you about years ago because
yeah, because in the early days, it was a matter of, I was in college and I was starting this DJ business, but I just literally didn't have the money to buy backup gear. And, but we eventually got around to that because we learned, you learn.
If a speaker falls and lands in the parking lot and breaks or
your entire sound rack,
your whole amplifier
falls off the hand truck hauling it in and lands, and rolls down the hill into the pond. These things happen. I've had guys loading in up staircases and the hand truck falls and the whole rack goes crashing down the stairs.
You have a whole nother complete system in the car that you make your guys take 2 complete systems to every
gig,
to every wedding.
There's 2 of everything. Everything.
Everything.
Yep. If you need 1, there's 2. If you need 2, there's 3.
Yeah.
It's,
right.
2 is 1 and 1 is none, baby, because, if you don't have a full backup for your stuff
you're
and
screwed.
Something goes wrong,
you're screwed.
It's Saturday evening. Where are you going to get it?
And you're in the middle of nowhere.
Because people don't come to Vermont and get married in, downtown Burlington next to Advanced Music where you can just go next door if they were open and buy another speaker.
Right. Especially when you're doing a high-end wedding. You have to have, we always used to say, prior planning prevents piss poor performance.
Exactly.
You have to have that extra item ready to go. Close by.
Exactly.
Close by.
Oh, yeah, it's got to be with you.
Minimal downtime.
Yeah, and with you, that's usually in the car, and that's only if you're at a tented gig and you can pull up next to it. There are some events where, if you're up on top of Killington Mountain at the Peak Lodge, you got to bring all your backup gear with you because if something breaks and it's 5 minutes before the ceremony, you don't have time to hop on the gondola and take a 10-minute ride down and then go get your stuff from the car, which is way down at the end of the parking lot, and then load it back in, take another 10-minute ride back up, haul it back down. You don't have time.
I did a gig.
Just,
I did a gig for you. I did a gig for you on top of Mount Mansfield.
Yep.
And I had to
put the Cliff House.
I had to put 2 sets of equipment into the gondola.
Yep.
It was the dead of summer. I was sweating like a pig.
95 degrees.
And I can't remember what.
Gotta love those July weddings.
I can't remember what it was, but I needed another piece of equipment. And I had it right there, and I'm a perfect example to this.
Exactly.
Reliability is huge. I want to ask you. We're going to talk pricing and how this works when you get on Peak Entertainment or PeakDJ.com. The process of how to go about booking, frankly, any DJ, because your website tells you what you should be thinking about, what you should look for, and the questions that you should ask.
Yeah, the top 10 most important questions. Again, something that I came up with while driving home from an event, thinking, man, somebody really needs to let people know when they're shopping for a DJ. These are the things you really should be asking, and not even asking the vendors, but asking yourself as you shop.
Yeah.
What is this person telling me in the way that they're answering or not answering my emails or phone calls or whatever?
Right.
And what what questions do I need to consider while I'm shopping for not only my DJ but any other wedding vendor?
Do folks take a risk by getting a $300 or $400 DJ?
Well, good luck finding one at that price these days. But they. I think people take a risk anytime they're anytime they're hiring someone who is significantly less than the average.
Okay.
There's an average, and then there's those that are a little above average, and those that are significantly less.
Okay.
And usually the ones that are significantly less than the average are they're less for a reason.
Yeah.
And they're often charging exactly what they're worth.
Right.
And, I always tell clients, read the reviews, read the good reviews, read the bad reviews. Go to the knot and scroll all the way down. You're going to have to click and click and click like 10 times to get to because, the Knot and Wedding Wire are, they make their money by selling advertising to vendors and venues. They, because of that, they don't want to upset the people who are shoving money down their throat. So they tend to bury the worst reviews down at the bottom of the list of 200, where you have to click and click and click to get to it. Right. But do yourself the favor, be patient and get to those reviews so that you can read the good and the bad.
Yeah.
And not only everybody has a bunch of 5-star reviews, but read what the reviews are actually saying.
Sure.
Are those clients who posted those reviews talking about the things that are important to you with your wedding?
Sure.
Because, there are DJs that have beautiful 5-star reviews that talk about how the DJ showed up and emceed all these line dances and got out on the dance floor with the microphone. And that's the kind of thing where, most of our clients don't want that at their wedding. But there are clients who do. And, one way is not different. One way is not better than the other. It's just different. So we do what's called a discrete approach, where we do what is necessary for announcements and interaction.
Keep it professional.
But keep it professional, and we assume that if the client hasn't told us to do something, that they don't want us to do it.
Sure.
And so, there are clients who do want that interactive DJ. Now, an interactive is the opposite of what we do, which is discrete. There are clients who love the interactive DJ.
Sure.
And those are not our clients.
Right.
But
I
the
remember,
key is knowing who you are, what you want when you're doing your shopping.
I remember
and make sure you read those reviews, because
of course,
they'll let you know.
They're so important.
Right.
I remember you sending out an email to me and everyone else saying dial it back. Of course, we were talking about personality here on the microphone. And then I remember another email saying dial it way back.
Way back.
And making sure that your DJs that are going out that they're not being hired to be an entertainer,
right,
or a comedian. Exactly. And to essentially shut up and let the music do the talking.
That's exactly it. I tell all the guys that it's not our job to be the entertainment. It's not our job to ever be the focus of attention. The only time.
That's it
right there. The only time that the focus of attention is on the DJ is for about 10 seconds, when the DJ gets on the mic and says, welcome to John and Sarah's wedding. We're about to welcome our wedding party. I'd like to direct your attention to the doorway, and let's get a nice warm welcome for the parents of the bride. And that's the only time that all eyes are on the DJ.
You're right.
For however many seconds it took me to say that.
Sure.
And at that point, and every time before it, and from that point on for the rest of the evening, the focus is always on the couple and their celebration, and facilitating that celebration so that the focus never leaves the celebration and all of the different components of it: bride and father dance, groom and mother dance, first dance, cake cutting, and the dance floor itself. The focus is always on that celebration, never on the DJ.
Sure.
If the DJ walks out at the end of the night and nobody knows who he was from, who he was, or that he was from Peak Entertainment, then he's done his job well.
Wow.
Exactly.
That is so well said.
That's the thing. We don't want to be the primary focus.
Yeah.
And you know what DJs people remember? Bad ones.
Wow.
Yeah. If the DJ is, doing a bad job, people will remember that DJ.
I promise you, we're going to talk about cost and how to do this, and how to get your your wedding, your event in the pipe, and what's involved with that. But I first want to just before we go there, and talk about cost. The way that you have everything so dialed in is so remarkable to me.
Thank you.
You have a facility with identical systems that are numbered and lined up in an organized way, and every single system is identical, from the clipboard to how many pens are in it to the way it is organized in your facility.
That's
Everything
true.
is numbered. As a DJ, when you are assigned to a wedding, when you walk into your facility, you know what number you're assigned to. You pick up your clipboard, your envelope. You've got specific USB drives in there with specific music for that wedding, whether they be first dances or whatever.
Yep.
You have even a printout of MapQuest so that if you don't have cell service or your phone dies or whatever, you have directions on how to get to that gig. You even you tell what time you need to get on the road to be not there on time, but to be there early in anticipation of something.
Flat tires.
A flat tire, something. And you pay your DJs not only well, but you pay them for that extra time that's involved where they're getting to somewhere so early.
Yep.
You're willing to pay for that time because that's an insurance contract.
Yeah, it is. That's true.
There's even you've taken it a little far, buddy. You've even got a piece of gum in the envelope.
A pack of gum.
So that when your DJ arrives hungry, that at least they have good breath.
Right. You know, and where'd you get the bell, dude? I love the bell. That's awesome.
I mean, that's
remarkable. I mean, it's a matter of, and the guys all know that you chew the gum during setup so that, like, when it comes time to start the gig, the gum is out of your mouth and you're not chewing it in front of anybody.
Exactly.
But you have good breath when you walk up to the bride and groom and do their introductions. Because, that first interaction that you have with your client, aside from talking on the phone or emailing, the first face-to-face interaction that we have with most of our clients is after the ceremony and after the cocktail hour when they've done their photos, when we get them lined up for the introductions. We line everybody up and we finally get to the bride and groom and we check the pronunciation of their names and go, hey, it's nice to meet you.
Sure. Pronunciations, so important.
Yeah.
Spell stuff phonetically.
And make sure that you practice it and you know how to do it. I mean, this ain't rocket science, but it's a matter of doing it and doing it right. And
the difference between system number 15 and system number 7
is nothing.
There's no difference.
They're
literally identical.
That is correct. And there's a couple of reasons I do that. So, the Peak Entertainment Equipment Barn is set up like an operating room. I mean, you know how it is. I mean, you walk in there and everything's lined up. It's not cookie. It's not like kitty corner a little bit. It's not crooked. It's all lined up and it's all perfectly in order. All the systems are stacked exactly the same way.
Exactly.
We do that so that I can walk in and in one moment, as soon as I open the door, I can tell if anything's out of place or missing.
Right.
And we keep all of the equipment in system, say 7 versus system 12, is exactly the same. And we do that because, if primarily, there's two main reasons, but primarily we do it for quality control because wireless microphones in particular and speakers and such, they all perform a little differently. All the different models do. Mm-hmm. So you've got to have exactly the same model. And the number one problem that people have with sound systems is feedback. Mm-hmm. That screech when you turn the microphone up a little too loud or you get the microphone a little too close to the speaker. Mm-hmm. And if you have a different brand or model of microphone or a different brand or model of speaker or a different brand or model of mixing board where you're turning up the microphone, any of those components, if it's a little different, it will have a different feedback point. And we need to be able to know that if we set the mic volume at a certain number and we set the speaker levels at a certain number,
that's your threshold.
Those are the thresholds. And so we know that if all of our systems are exactly the same, no matter which system the DJ has, there are thresholds for every one of those settings where we know as long as we don't go above those thresholds on all the settings, on all the components, that microphone will perform as it should without feedback, and that microphone on every one of the systems will perform exactly the same way on every system at every setup.
We're chatting with Newton Wells, the owner from Peak Entertainment, peakdj.com. And this is something, this is all coming out of the mouth of a guy who for the first couple of years was piecemealing and trying to decipher this situation and that situation, and that's when you said, you know what? I'm going to get every single system. I'm selling everything, and I'm going to start over.
Yep.
And I'm going to have identical systems so that I can fix stuff quickly. I know when something. This is also a guy.
Right.
This is also a guy who, when you return your system, he's going to go through your cable bag and make sure all of your cables are rolled up properly. And if they're not, honestly, I'm a stickler for rolling XLR cables.
I know. I appreciate it.
Because of you.
Thank you.
Serious. My dad was the same way about rolling his extension cords.
I can imagine because, it's a tool. And when you're doing a job and you need your tool to be where you need it to be, ready to go, you don't want to pull it out of the bag and have to untangle this mess.
There's no time for that.
There's no time for that.
You don't have time for that.
Right. And even if you do have time for it, you have to assume that you might not have time for it.
Yes.
Because you never know what's going to happen on the way to the gig, or you never know what you might run into when you get to the gig. You could get to the gig at a venue that does weddings all the time, and something could have gone wrong.
Yeah.
And, there could be, let's say there's a really bad thunderstorm that's rolling in,
Sure.
and we've got to, the bride had said, keep the ceremony outside, keep it outside, keep it outside, keep it outside, and then at the last 10 minutes,
right,
there was no way, and
Sure.
the sky opened up, and we've got to move everything, and at that point, it's all hands on deck.
You're speaking from direct experience.
Absolutely. And all the preparation in the world on behalf of the venue or everybody else
doesn't matter.
is not going to change the fact that we've now got to, completely change plans. And at that point, the DJ, the photographer, everybody is like, how can I help?
Sure.
Let's go. We're a team and we're going to move everything and get it all moved and set up. So, you might end up working in a hurry at any event on any day.
Yeah.
So that's why your equipment has got to be ready at all times with your backup and everything ready to go.
It's basically plug and play. And
Yeah.
it's so much so that it's to the point where as your DJ arrives at a venue, they can put that sound system together
Yep.
blindfolded.
Yep. And
They
we've
can-
done this way for years and years.
They can put that system together while having a conversation with someone else,
Yes.
be it
The coordinator,
the coordinator,
the photographer,
the photographer,
the caterer.
who's asking you questions.
Yeah.
You can answer because your body is literally an autopilot. You know
Right.
how to put that system together.
I don't want a DJ going out and doing an event until, there's a lot of things where we have to prepare, in ways in which we have to prepare new employees. But yeah, one of those things is, we don't want the DJ going out until they can assemble that system without thinking about it. It's got to be second nature. because you get to these gigs and like there's a lot of folks that need to talk to the DJ. And one reason we allow an hour and a half at the very least, of setup time.
Yeah.
When, you can in most cases, you can set up your system or two in 20 or 30 minutes. Ceremony in one spot, cocktail hour in the other spot. And, these systems are pre-wired in the road case, ready to go. So it's like 2 speaker cables,
Bang.
a mic cable, and a power strip with two inputs.
Done.
So it's done. But, so we always allow extra time so that we can do that. We have plenty of time to talk to those people. But, again, it's all about being prepared for the crazy situation that comes up.
Sure.
The unexpected. We always, as you always said, plan for the worst, but expect the best, which I got from you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
peakdj.com. The questionnaire is something that when you get on that website,
Yep.
that's where you should go first.
Yeah.
If you're getting married, even this coming summer,
Yeah.
or next summer, is it too late to hire you for this coming summer?
No, we one reason we charge what we charge is I don't want to sell this out too early because you think about it, we're spending a lot of money and effort on marketing and maintaining relationships.
Sure.
It would not do me any good to sell out all of my dates because I'm charging too little and get everything sold out by December 1st before the booking season even really kicks in. The majority of the engagements happen at Christmas, Valentine's Day, and around those holiday seasons.
Sure.
So the booking season is generally like January, February, March, April.
Okay.
And if I sold it out too early, then I would just be turning down clients who are coming as referrals from venues where we've worked really hard to develop a rapport and a good relationship with the people that work there, and they're sending their clients to us. And if we have to turn them all down, we're not doing anybody any favors. So I always make sure that we're charging enough so that we're not selling these dates out early. Some of them do end up getting sold out, but we try not to do that.
You fine-tune your itinerary.
Yeah.
To the comma. To the T.
Yeah, and they're long.
In a way.
These are extensive contracts.
But it's put together in a way where it's easy to read. It's fast to read for your DJ.
Right.
But the detail that goes into this, you are orchestrating these events like a fine-tuned Broadway musical.
That's exactly the way I put it to people. Yeah, it's and it's true, and that brings me to the other point about and we should get I'll answer your question first, but because I know what you're driving at there. It's the detail that goes into our itineraries is it's exceptional. Most of our itineraries, even before you add the client's music selections at the end, are 6, 7, 8 pages long.
Sure.
Covering everything in chronological order, and the drill down on each particular one. There's the section for the ceremony, the section within the ceremony for the processionals, 1 or 2. How do we know who's coming in? What are they dressed like? What do we need to play for each particular one? How
to say their name phonetically.
Yeah, and that for the introductions, sure. So the ceremony, and then you got the recessional, and then you got the cocktail hour, and like, what are we doing for cocktail hour? What do we need for equipment at the cocktail hour? Is there going to be a mic required at the cocktail hour? Do we need to make any announcements at the end of it to send people inside? Then we might need a mic. Are we doing introductions? If we are doing introductions, what are we doing for intro music? Is it one song, or is it one for each pair of people coming in?
Sure.
Who are the people being introduced, and how do we pronounce those names? All of this stuff. First dance, bride and father, groom and mother, who's doing toasts, at what point are they doing toasts? Do we need to know anything particular about that individual person that might be helpful in preparing them to be prepared and try to lessen their level of nervousness for their toast, because a lot of people don't like public speaking. So it's the DJ's job to make sure that person is at ease and prepared and and actually feeling good about doing their toast.
And speaking properly into the microphone. In
Right,
a way,
yes.
In a way
Yeah.
that everyone can hear.
Right. Because
We're not-
that's a common issue.
They're not used to speaking in a microphone.
People don't
and
speak in
hearing their
microphones.
voices coming back.
Yes, that really throws people sometimes. I mean, people like you and I are used to it because
Right.
we've been DJing for years. But to the best man or the bridesmaid or whatever who is doing the toast, sister of the bride, is like she's never used a micro, or she hasn't used a microphone in a long time.
Right.
And to be speaking on the mic, one of the first things a lot of people do is they'll speak into the mic and they go, oh, wow, because they hear it coming back through the speakers, and they're not used to hearing what their voice sounds like.
Of course.
And that can throw people.
Yeah.
So, sometimes we'll, we always talk to the couples and say, hey, is there anyone who's a little bit skittish about this? If they are, have them come see the DJ prior to the ceremony during setup, and we'll put a mic in their hands. We'll spend a few minutes getting them used to how it sounds so that they're not as thrown.
Yeah.
These are little details that just make a huge difference in the success of the event and the way people feel at the end of the night, which is really the key.
That's the key. You're right.
Yeah, we want the couple and all their guests to walk out having had the best experience possible.
The Aired Out podcast is live on Facebook and YouTube. You're going to we're live right now, but as soon as we're done, you'll have a link to these. Hope that you're able to drop one of the links, maybe the YouTube link, on your website, because people watching, listening,
Yep.
getting married, know someone that's getting married, whether it's this summer or next summer. The bottom line is people want to know, what's the price? What's it going to cost?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Which is kind of variable. It kind of
is.
depends.
It all depends on the date, primarily.
Date. So what's the highest priority? Venue?
Yeah, I mean, I think most people pick their venue first, and the venue is the stage. The venue sets the stage, and again, getting back to that Broadway analogy, the venue is like the most important thing, because that's the scene.
Sure.
It's all the scenery. It's the stage.
Atmosphere.
It's the whole atmosphere. And I've always argued that the soundtrack, which is what we're doing, is second in importance only to the setting itself. So there's the venue is the absolute most important thing, should be the number one priority for your budget and for and for your shopping. Like you want to choose your venue and book your venue first, and then the other two things that most people think about is DJ and food. But you know what? I've been to some weddings as a guest, and I don't know about you, but I don't remember what I ate, but I sure do remember dancing my tail off all night long.
Or the feeling that you get,
Yeah.
oh, wow, he's playing this song. Boom, you're up out of your chair.
Oh my God. Like, you hit that start button, and I love it when there's somebody in the room who says, oh my God, I love this song, as soon as you hit it.
And the shoes come off.
And the shoes come off, and she's on the dance floor.
Right.
And, if the women are on the dance floor, the men will dance with them, and you end up with a full dance floor. That's why we always play to the women. I mean, that's the trick with DJs,
Venue, very important.
Super important.
DJ, next in line.
Absolutely.
For
And for that
priorities.
reason,
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I tell people, even, we get some people who are on a budget, and even clients on a budget can have a spectacular wedding if they've got the right location and a spectacular DJ. If they have a really good DJ with the right music for that crowd, and that DJ is beat mixing their sets and responding to that crowd as needed, while working within a playlist that's set up by their couple so that we know that it's what they want, then they'll have a spectacular wedding, even if the beer is coming from a keg.
Sure.
And
Right.
it's a barbecued chicken deal, or
course.
even we get some of these that are potluck.
Yeah.
And people are still they're gonna have some food that they like.
Sure.
They're gonna have a full stomach, and they're gonna dance their tails off.
Yeah.
You know. Most of our clients are, they're pretty well heeled, and they're coming from New York and Boston, Jersey, Connecticut, DC, coming up here to get married, and
Vermont's a destination
Vermont
wedding.
Vermont and Maine are usually neck and neck for the number 2 wedding destinations in slot in the United States. Hawaii is always number 1. They beat us all because they're year round.
Sure.
And it's a very consistent climate year round over there. So they're always going to beat us. And of course, right between Vermont and Maine is New Hampshire. So New Hampshire is another very high wedding destination state.
The lake regions.
The lake region and
the
the
White
White Mountains
Mountains.
and the Great North Woods and it's just down near Keene, the Monadnock region as well. And we do weddings throughout Vermont and New Hampshire and
New York.
Yeah, we do some over in Lake Placid and some over in Maine on the coast. Or Western Maine. But our 2 primary states are Vermont and New Hampshire. And it's, about half and half. These are beautiful spots. And most of our clients are not, they're not looking to, if they're booking with us, they're not looking to find the cheapest DJ they can find.
Sure.
But everybody has a budget.
Yeah.
Even if you're getting married at a really posh venue,
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of money you don't want to go above, and that's understandable. And I respect people's budgets. And there are certainly situations where I've had calls from people who would like to work with us, but they just can't make it work financially.
Yeah.
And
right.
And we'll also do what we can to make, if I get the feeling that client really wants to work with us, I'll do what I can to, I'll look at that date and go like, okay, so like if there's any flexibility in the price, we're going to do it. But if I can't, and there are situations where I can't, I will do my best to send them off to someone, another company that might be able to do a good job as well.
That you know and trust.
Yeah, that we know and trust.
Yeah.
Because they're out there. And you get closer to the date and that gets harder and harder because the problem is, people get sold out early. And
Your integrity is impeccable. It just is. New.
Well, thank you. We try, it's a fun business. But we're dealing with people on the happiest days of their lives, but it's also at the time when they're spending an insane amount of money, or not an insane amount of money, I shouldn't say that, but like an incredible amount of money to throw the biggest party they're ever going to throw. Wow. And so there's a lot of consideration, there's a lot of stress, and we have to keep all that in mind. We have to make sure that what they're doing, for what they're doing, for the effort and time and money that they're putting in, they're getting the best result that they can. And the DJ is instrumental in that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the statistic is for divorce, but the last I knew, it was basically a 2-to-1 ratio.
Yeah.
It was like 50%.
It's just north of 50, I think.
Okay.
But
Raylene wants to know if you've ever done an anti-wedding or or marriage party, or maybe even a divorce party.
we have done a divorce party. I think once, just once. I mean, and in comparison to 6,000 plus weddings, but so it's a pretty minuscule percentage. But there was one groom who called us. We had done his wedding, and he threw a divorce party for himself. It was
The same.
Yes. I mean, these things don't happen very often, but and we've even done a couple. I've worked for a couple of different people who have gotten married twice at this point and hired us for both.
Wow.
And that's rare, but it has happened a couple of times. And we're even at a point now where I'm getting calls for the daughters or sons of people whose wedding we did 20 plus years ago.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What was it like when you did your first couple of civil unions?
You know, that's a good question. I remember those days. You know, I'm so glad you brought that up.
You can't say the bride and the groom.
Right.
Things have to change with.
And we should preface this with a little talk about the term civil unions, because, like, you know, these days, with things being so progressive and the gay rights being as they are, it's hard for someone who didn't live through that to understand that. You know, I think that was 2000, 2001.
When
it was 2001.
Legalized gay marriage.
When Vermont legalized civil unions. They started with civil unions. And Vermont was the first state to legalize civil unions.
Mm-hmm.
And
that was a big deal.
It was a big deal. I mean, like, you know, these days, you know, civil unions are looked at as like, a halfway approach, and like it wasn't a marriage, and so of course there are milestones for the gay community that have come since that are much better, you know, with like the striking down of the Defense of Marriage Act nationally, and you know, other states prior to that, other states legalizing gay marriage and all that, and then Vermont also legalizing gay marriage, but at first there was no gay marriage, and Vermont was the first state to legalize a civil union. And I remember the first civil union that I did, and it was I'm pretty sure it was 2001. It was that summer, after the governor at the time was Howard Dean, and Dean had squeaked by in the election with like 50.4% or something like that. You know, as opposed to his challenger, who ran the challenger had run on the platform of not having civil unions.
Yeah.
That was her primary and almost only platform item, and she had lost with like 49.6%. I mean, it was so close that you know, it darn near cost Howard the election. And when they legalized civil unions, I think they did it quietly in the governor's office. There was not a big press thing about it. It was a sensitive subject back then. But hats off to the state of Vermont for, you know, having the chutzpah to do it.
Yeah.
And
you jumped on.
Oh, we were absolutely on board with it. And so I booked a civil union for two women that summer, and they were from another state. They were not from Vermont, and they had traveled here from quite far away, and I think they only had 6 guests. And part of the reason was, you know, that one of them was a teacher, and she knew that in the state that she had come from, she could lose her job if it came out that she was married to another woman.
Amazing.
I mean, that was just 20 years ago. Well,
Amazing.
23, 22 years ago. But
feels like yesterday.
It feels like yesterday.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how different things were at the time.
Sure.
I mean, at that time, if you were in the U.S. military, it was illegal for you to be gay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So, so I remember those days, and we did a lot of civil unions, and, you know, we used to even track it. You know, we would ask people, like, and a lot of times they would call anyway, and because it was a different thing, because it wasn't technically a marriage, they would tell you, well, this is a civil union. These days, you know, people don't even tell you, like, it's that you're dealing with a gay couple, and that's okay. We don't care. But they, others, it's a wedding.
Others want to know how many you've done.
Yeah, but so we used to track. You know, we used to track it, and we don't really track it anymore. But we used to track it because we wanted to know, like, you know, how much of an impact is this having on the industry?
Yeah.
And how many people are really doing it? And it was an interesting time.
We encourage our viewers, our listeners, to get on peakdj.com. Newton Wells. Absolute pleasure having you on tonight, my man. Just Love having
thank you, sir.
I love you to pieces.
It's so nice to see you.
We're not gonna talk at all about your first ever wedding that you DJ'd. We'll save that for no. We'll save that.
You
got to
learn
time.
somewhere, right?
We're gonna save that one for another show.
It's funny. I started a DJ company, having never worked for another DJ company.
Right.
It's not like I was working for some other company learning how to do this.
But my God,
I
did
just
you
had to
figure
wing
it out?
We figured it out.
Ooh.
It took time, but we figured it out.
You had notebooks and notebooks of notes.
Oh yeah. I was doing my homework, and this was back in the mid 90s, you couldn't there was no YouTube,
Yeah. I'm proud of you, man.
So, I remember buying a VHS tape. Remember those?
No. I don't.
No, you're not that old. Right.
Those were after, those were way before my time.
From a DJ company out in the Midwest that was selling videotapes on how to DJ a wedding.
Oh.
And that was one of the sources that I used of to get an idea.
Basic foundation.
Because, I loved being a DJ, and I had started by, doing a lot of school dances.
Sure.
And
right.
we did a lot of school stuff, and they were great crowds and a lot of fun. I mean, let's face it, a teenager just loves to dance.
Sure.
And it's.
But you also learned that it's so important to keep the flow going.
Yes.
For the time that you are there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one thing you learn by doing those school dances back in the early days, where it was all about just building the energy level.
That's right.
And you always had that
maintaining it.
It's funny how things, even weddings are a lot the same way, where you start out with a lower energy level, and you're building that energy level throughout the evening, because you can't throw 128 beat per minute hip hop at somebody at 7:00 and expect a full dance floor.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Because
read your crowd.
Read your crowd.
Know when they're tired.
And, this is something we probably wouldn't say if we were actually on the air, but I'll tell you, this is a lot like sex. You've got to build the energy level
to the climax.
Exactly. There's the early part of the evening that is your foreplay, and then there's the middle of it where you've got everybody moving on the dance floor, and then there's that last half hour, the last hour or so, where you've got this high energy dancing, and people are liquored up, the bartender's giving you a thumbs up, and everybody's on the dance floor.
Yeah.
And
you own the night.
Oh my God,
it's
you own
in
the night.
Palm of your
they
hand.
are just they're jumping like crazy, and they're it's fantastic. And you've beat mixed the entire night, and you've got this last set, and you're just jamming through it. And
I've done weddings.
Oh yeah,
I've DJ'd weddings for you, where I'm actually, truly, really bummed out that I have to go
it's over.
home.
I know.
I want to. I got another 30 minutes in my pocket.
I know.
Here.
I mean, it's
At
funny
least.
because we do so many of these where we we do end the night, and you end the night on the high note, and inside you that you could easily get another 20, 30 minutes out of that crowd. But the key is what I tell people is take a cue from the Jerry Seinfeld approach to show business, because ultimately, again, this is show business. This is like a Broadway show. And if anybody remembers the whole story about Seinfeld, the TV show, they pulled the plug on that show when it was at the absolute peak of its ratings. And Jerry had the rights to it, and he and the producer said, you know what? We're done.
We're going to go out.
And the TV,
on top.
The studios were like, oh my God, but we're making so much money on the show, you can't stop now. And he was like, nope.
It's having.
We're gonna end on a high note.
It's having the mentality of leave them wanting more.
That's exactly it. And that's what we do with our DJ events. And it's what I tell my clients, you want to make sure that you leave them wanting more. Once in a while we run into a client who's like, we want to drag this out until the very last person is on the dance floor. And I'm like, think about that. Do you really want to do that? I mean, I would argue that a successful party will end with everybody still there on the dance floor, having an absolute time, completely exhausted, covered in sweat.
Yeah.
And the ties are off, the buttons are down to here.
Shirt tails
are out. Nobody cares about how they look anymore.
Barefoot.
Yes, and the women are all barefoot. And they're having a spectacular time. And that is when you roll out the last song of the night and you end that party and everybody walks out saying, wow, that was a great wedding. And you're not going to get that if you play it another hour and a half, and until people are so exhausted that they're just, one or two at a time, they're just like, I'm going back to my room,
I'm proud of you, man.
Thank you.
That's it right there. Love you, pal. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. You too.
You're so passionate about what you do.
Man, I've got the greatest job in the world. I get paid to party. And it's something that I absolutely love doing. And I can't imagine doing anything else that I would enjoy this much. Honestly, you could elect me president of the United States and I'd much rather be a wedding DJ.
There he is right there. Peak Entertainment, one of our supporting sponsors. If you look at your screen, you'll see him. Now you know. Thanks, pal.
Thank you.